Welcome into Dynasty Mode, the unofficial EA Sports college football game podcast. My name is Arky Shay. This podcast is all about gambling in the new college football video game and how to incorporate it. But I can't talk about it by myself. I got to do it with my main man, my big squeeze, my Greek god himself, Mr. Demetri Ravanos Demetri. Hello, my Grecian queen.
Arky, well, thank you. Um, First of all, I love the energy. It always makes me feel welcome when I am hanging out with you. Secondly, I love that very similar to a prayer at a Southern Baptist church, you come in with absolutely no game plan.
No game plan. There is no
Just
game plan for this podcast.
whatever comes out. If I get a Lord, we just about 4 times, just know that we're getting where we're trying to go, but we're not there yet.
No. Here's the thing. Like, what I'm doing is vamping to get us to about the 35-minute mark, and then I feel like we're good. After that, we're like solid. We're good. We ain't got to do nothing else.
So
All right.
just to be clear, vamping to the 35-minute mark is not like, and then we'll start the show.
Oh, that was my plan actually. I did have
okay.
a little bit of game plan. I'll vamp, and we'll talk about the ins and outs of like your day to day.
Yeah.
How life's going with the email checking.
Mm-hmm.
But first, I guess now that I see what you're saying about the vamping and how that could turn some viewers
Sure.
off, sort of reduce our hanging on of viewers who are not subscribers to this and know that our talking abouts are a little silly.
Right.
The people who want to immediately start a video with like, hey man, here's what the video is about. Subscribe, click a button, subscribe, share with a friend, subscribe, leave a link in the comments, subscribe.
Do we what should we tell people to do? Should we tell them to hit that subscribe button? Should we be a little more aggressive? Should we tell them to hammer that subscribe button?
Ooh, I like thrust.
Sure,
Upon
thrust
that
that subscribe button. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, thrust on that subscribe button, baby. Do a little Ime Adoka action. Oh, wrong sport. Sorry about that, guys.
But someone bringing the pre-recording conversation to the air. I like it.
That's right. Okay. Let's get it back to where it belongs. Do some of that Mike Price action, son.
Oh, there it is. There
right.
it is.
All right. So we got a fun show lined up because we're going to vamp to about 35 minutes about gambling in the college football game and how to incorporate it. Because, Demetri, I was thinking about this as a topic because it's clear whether you listen to sports talk radio, whether you watch sports on television at all, whether you watch your college game days or you watch your big noon Saturdays,
so
gambling is a huge deal and it's becoming a more ever-present portion of these broadcasts. And I don't think a new video game can come out without some type of allusion to that.
So I had this realization this weekend because I just didn't have anything to do. So I found myself with game day on in the background normally, but I found myself paying closer attention. So I probably paid attention to about 2 straight hours of game day this week. And in 2 hours, Arky, I would say more than 50%, and maybe it's only slightly more than 50%, was dedicated to spreads and lines.
Yeah. It's a big deal. And the thing about it is it's still the minority of the population participates, right? It still is the minority of even the viewing audience participates in it. It's different in the NFL. I had a well-connected, let's just say,
a sharp, if you will,
gambling analyst on my show years and years ago on radio. And I asked him, I was like, okay, listen, there can't be that many people that are that interested in like a Monday Night Football. Why are some of these games are just ridiculous? Why are so many people interested in some of these really terrible games? And he said, Arky, I'll be honest with you, about 60% of the people viewing these games are watching it because of gambling.
Wow.
And that's NFL. That's different. That's obviously you can tell the numbers are higher in the NFL, so on and so forth. More people seem to think they know how to bet the NFL. College football and college sports is a little different. Fewer numbers, fewer people just in general. But you're right. Like they'll put that much coverage on something that is still technically participated in a minority of the audience. In fact, Demetri, you didn't even start really sort of doing some of the regular gambling till somewhat recently, right?
About I don't know, week 6, 7, 8, somewhere in there last season. Yeah, and now I bet every week. I make about 10 bets a week. Don't bet a ton of money, but it does make following the sport the way you and I follow the sport more fun.
Exactly. Like we do now. You have a different reason to pay attention to FIU. I have the gambling instinct to
Oh,
pay attention to the
can I
FIU.
give
But we're
you
both watching FIU.
can I give you something I pounced on like immediately last night when the line was released?
Feel free to tell me, brother.
UMass plus 32.5 at Texas A&M.
Wow, I'm gonna feel
Texas
bad.
A&M is not even scoring 32 points in that game.
I'm gonna be honest with you. You're not gonna like this. It's up to 34.5, just as we're recording this. But yeah, exactly. Like that's exactly the thing that we're talking about is getting involved with these sports betting spreads and how to sort of put them into the game. And Dimitri, I wanted to start this off with an idea that I had that's been sort of top of mind with this is that I thought, whether you have a PlayStation 5 or an Xbox coming up, that you sort of have these achievements that you can
Right.
get, right? And these things that happen within your user profile of the game itself and your dynasty, so to speak. And obviously, depending on what game you have, the little icon comes up, said, "Boom, you were awesome. Here's some points. You
Yeah.
can get something new." I think there should be something with this game that rewards you for covering spreads. Like I think honestly, if this game can give achievements for every single spread that you cover. Now, if you want to space it out, I get it. But covering the spread, like I think that is an achievement in this game. I think that's something that needs to be paid attention to. And in fact, Dimitri, I'll go forward and say, as far as the achievements are concerned, I wouldn't mind it if there were times that you didn't know what the spread was
Oh
until you
my.
unlocked that achievement. That way you could be like, well, good thing I kept the pedal to the metal here against Notre Dame because I just beat them by 21 and the spread was 19.
So
Nice.
so Arky, I'm gonna push back on you a little bit and also ask another question here because I think that very similar to NIL. I think there are two different conversations that need to be had in terms of bringing gambling into the game. But I think a bigger question than that, and I would ask this to the people. Hey, join us in the comments below.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Subscribe, 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 subscribe. Thrust
Or
upon that subscribe button.
or Arky, rate and review if you're listening on podcast.
Rate and review. I think you can really only do it on Apple Podcast. Boom.
Boom. I really do wonder how much fans would want a gambling element in this game because I think as much as we talk about more than 50% of game day is in some way talking about gambling storylines. I do think there's a very vocal contingent of college football fans that are not interested in betting at all. And so I'm not saying that you would have to eliminate betting entirely. I just wonder if it is one of those things where if you are putting in achievements based on covering spreads, hitting totals, et cetera, is it sacrificing or is it memory that has to be sacrificed? Or is it memory that has to be used at the sacrifice of something more universally interesting in the game?
Okay. Well, okay. Let me answer that question to come back onto your pushback. How about that, brother? If I have to sacrifice something cool to get gambling, depends on how cool and if I'm talking about your cool or my cool.
No, I'm glad you said that. So at the lowest end of what you think is cool, what would you not sacrifice? What is the bare limit of like, no, sorry, no gambling?
Man, what is I immediately went to ice the kicker. I don't know why I went to ice the kicker. But I would probably sacrifice that for
yeah, okay, but like, all right, so
to speak,
let's say
that comes up not very often at all, like super rare.
Right,
in the games I've been playing.
Let's say they put a cap on the number of uniforms a team can have, so you cannot do the Oregon, the Oklahoma State, the Western Kentucky thing of like every week we just came up with this idea and boom, it's in the game.
But a cap's probably not like 2, right? Like a cap's probably like 5, 6 or something. Like
okay, what if the cap is 4?
Okay, I'll be straight. I'd probably rather have the gambling.
Okay,
to be honest with you. But I know there's a lot of people that would like all the uniform options. I get it because you play, it's monotonous, you get the same conference. Thanks for waving. You're one of those fellas.
Yes.
I get it. Yeah, but like are we required to sacrifice that? Like, we're going to have, I don't want to say downloadable content. We're going to have the ability to download as much data onto our disks or onto our hard drives as possible, onto our consoles, that is. So,
Yeah, I
like,
mean,
is that
it's a
going to
good
be like,
question.
is it too time consuming? You mean like for the engineers to put that at versus the actual uniforms? Like,
Not only that, but remember, even if you are downloading a bunch of stuff having to do with this game, that is content that then has to leave your Xbox or PlayStation. If you are just full up on games, and like for instance, so I'm nowhere near the cap on my hard drive on PS5, right? But there was a debate because my son and I downloaded FIFA 23 this weekend. There was this debate of, do we really need everything? Do we really need to pay the $99.99 price tag to unlock all of the downloadable content? Don't we just kind of want league mode and World Cup? And so I do think that because we paid the big price tag to get everything with Jedi Fallen Order. Um, so, I mean, that's one of those conversations you have
I
to have.
I do appreciate where your priorities were,
Yeah, of course.
and they're always going to be with Chewbacca. They're always going to
They are.
be, always going to be with Chewbacca. And listen, you're a loyal person and a loyal friend, and I get it. Chewie appreciates it too, I'm sure.
Yes.
But that is kind of an interesting discussion to have, only because I think the option that is there clearly is that I'm going to be one of the rare people probably that would, whichever my new console I decide is going to be, that's literally probably going to have two games, right? Like, I'm only
Right.
going to really get it for the college football game, and probably not FIFA, probably, I don't know, Need for Speed. I don't know. I don't know, something else. I have literally no other
No,
wants at this point
listen,
for a game.
Arky, it was
So
very hard trying to figure out a game that both my son and I wanted that we could compete in because almost everything he said, my response was like, nah. No, I'm with you. I'm with you.
okay.
I'm straining now trying to figure out what I want on a PS5.
But now let me tell you why I'm so adamant about having this gambling feature, because I think that there is another aspect of it that can be intriguing with the college football game itself, and that's inside Dynasty mode. Clearly, I think the gambling thing, like, I think that could be fun for, like, a play now, an exhibition or something like that. I don't know if that needs to be an achievement kind of thing. I guess
Okay.
some people will play around with achievements and want those. I get it. Like, that's just not really where I like to earn the majority of my achievements or gamer
Sure.
points or whatever that is. So I think your ability to cover the spread is something that should be, and the total as well, is something that should be kept up with and monitored inside your coaching profile. And Dimitri, yes, it should affect your job. It should,
Interesting.
because again, Dimitri, you keep boosters happy, you keep your program happy. You make
Okay.
boosters happy, bigger programs can be happy for you. And I'll be straight with you. I think I can see that being part of a feature that makes it harder to advance as a head coach in the dynasty mode. That makes it something else that's sort of paid attention to, because in dynasty mode, when you're becoming a coach and they're like doing this search for you and you're offered the contract, you never really know why, right? Like,
Right.
you're never like told, like, hey man, 44 points a game is freaking awesome, man. Let's take on that.
Yeah.
Or, man, we were you being the number 2 defense in the country really intrigued us. Whatever. Much less having an interview process like you would like to have in the game itself, where you can answer questions.
Well, and
So
see,
I think
here's
if
the
it's
other
another
part
thing
too.
that you can sort of monitor and pay attention to, that maybe sort of see and build this theory in your brain of why you were a head coach, chosen to be a head coach, or remained as a head coach somewhere.
So you mentioned that I would very much like a story mode type of thing, or a story element to be involved in Dynasty mode. It does give you the opportunity to sort of make some decisions, right? Like, think of like a Dungeons and Dragons style game where there is a lot of imagination and creating the story yourself and how you deal with various elements. Because if you did add that gambling element, because I had not thought of what it would mean to boosters, right? To keeping everybody associated with keeping your job happy. It would be very interesting to see how or to deal with a situation where the boosters largely are not bothered, but one booster is, right? Like there is one guy you got to keep happy. And does that, sway how much support you actually have given how powerful this person may be in the booster core or not? In that sense, I am all for gambling in the game if it furthers something bigger. I don't see the overall value of it, except, Arky, I'm going to give you the second conversation we need to have here. I mean, everything on the internet now is geotagged in various ways. Do we need to have an actual gambling element in the game? Maybe you can't play for real money. Maybe you are playing for PlayStation bucks. Or Xbox Dinero or whatever it is Xbox has.
That is what it's called. It's Xbox
Yeah, I
Dinero.
thought so.
Xbox headquartered in Mexico City.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
Bueno. And maybe it's only like head-to-head mode, like head-to-head online mode, right? Like maybe there is a very specific way that you can wager something on the game. But that to me is the other conversation that is worth having. And obviously, it's not just with the new college football game. I mentioned I downloaded FIFA this weekend. It would make a ton of sense for FIFA, particularly because that is an international game distributed to places with much more relaxed gambling laws, right? Like some version of this, I think would make a lot of sense.
Demetri, I think you've stumbled upon a very not stumbled upon idea, something that you probably actually thought about with your noggin. I think along those lines, broader picture, I'm going to narrow back down on what you're talking about.
Yeah.
You can really only sort of gain points, right? Like achievement points
Right.
or points in the game, so to speak. You can't lose them.
Right.
Why not?
Yeah,
And this
I mean,
is sort
I
of
agree.
adding on into your point. Like maybe you do get like an Xbox Gold membership, right? And that inside this game allows you to have a certain number of points. And clearly points can be cashed in for, a Tim Tebow card or something like that, right? So if you have those points inside the game and you've already listen, I know this sounds a little, offshore gambling sounding a little bit, all right? But if you can't sort of, it's just easier to be able to do it, I guess, from a point system that way. Or maybe you earn points in the game and then you earn up to be able to do this. Why can't you say, like, going into a game, like, I think 500 points, I'm going to cover the -7 here. Or even other games that you're paying attention to, like we normally do as gamblers. Like you have UNLV taking on Virginia Tech, and you're like, wow, okay, well, I'm playing that game. I'll put like 25 gamer points on that, and let's see who covers that spread. You know what I mean?
Sure. I mean, look, I think that if you are sort of bristling at this a little bit, understand that the number one video game platform in the world is not Xbox, it's not PlayStation, it's not Nintendo, it's this, right? It's on your phone, mobile gaming. And if you've ever played any of the sports or competition games from the company Miniclip, you're already doing this, right? You aren't gambling real money, but it is the in-game currency you have that goes back and forth as you play people head to head. And you can choose to buy more of the in-game currency if you want to. But, at the end of the day, it's not like you're actually putting 50 bucks on a game because, 50 real dollars buys you, somewhere in the area of like 25,000 game points or whatever the case may be. I think that the world of gaming is so different than the last time a college football game came out. And certainly it is light years beyond, if you are watching this on YouTube, the version you are seeing in the background here back when the game first came out on Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo.
This actually, for people wanting to know, this is from NCAA 98. This is Florida State. Although you can't really see Florida State much, maybe some of their shoes. But technically you can't really see Florida much either, so.
Right. I mean, I think these are realities that not even hardcore gamers, just the casual dude playing a game on his phone, the casual dude that, like, that's the only way he has played video games since the last game came out, is used to competing. To me, that is a more interesting way to incorporate gambling than put it in the game. Although I will say, what you have brought up, adding it or making it part of the story element of the game, I am all for. But I think actually going back and forth, and you say you can wager X number of points. I think that if you are going to play head to head online, it's just understood. This is a 100 coin, 100 XP, 100 whatever game on the line.
Oh, sure. Oh, so okay, so if I mean with the, wagering on the game, I mean like maybe like while you're in dynasty mode, you look at the game schedule that week and you're like, wow, Virginia Tech is, a 12.5 point spread. Put some gamer points on that kind of thing,
So
right? While you're saying, but what
here's my
you're
pushback to that. Here's my pushback to that. And I know that especially during the pandemic, a lot of offshore books and maybe even some Vegas books, I don't remember, did a lot of the hey, Madden, 2020, who's going to win, the Bills or the Chiefs? But I think to do it inside the game, I I don't think there is a way to placate the customers that this is all on the up and up. And if you lose, it was not specifically to take your money or your XP away from you.
yeah, but
I,
like I
I
I
hear
fe-
what you're
I
saying.
feel like I feel like I say that when I gamble on NBA games. Like I
Right.
feel like like I feel like there are referees I have to pay attention to who are like, okay, you're clearly going to side with the home team, and
Right.
if you're not, you're screwing me out of money on
Right.
purpose.
But see, but the difference there is the casino, the book, the whatever can say to you, like, hey, man, we don't control the NBA. This
Yeah,
is
but
literally the book controlling the outcome of the game.
well, it's much the same way it is when you like do slots in Vegas, right?
Sure.
Like it's not something that you can control. It's technically a program that controls the number of payouts and how many times it has to spend to be able to get a payout, so on and so forth. Listen, I'm not saying this is the best idea.
Yeah.
I'm saying this is the second best idea. We can build upon the biggest idea and the best idea when we get there. But when you were talking about a moment ago about doing the online thing, I think that's a completely different, along the same lines, but completely different avenue,
Oh,
which
sure.
is, yeah, if you want to go gamer points, or hell, if you just want to go inside, you play somebody online and say, listen, loser Venmo's $25 or whatever, that's on your own thing, right? That's just sort of playing. But if you want to create a feature where there are gamer points attached to, then I think it's just like, again, with all this gambling, it all goes back to, Las Vegas, Nevada, which is a lot of like poker rooms and poker tables to get to, like it's a certain pay in, right? So you're expecting like there's dollar tables, $5 tables, $15 tables, $100 rooms and tables. They're like, this is your buy-in. So you know that when you get to a certain level, you expect a certain level of competition, and there's a certain group of people who are in that sort of room. It's like creating sort of another, gambling room that is obviously going to be nothing but above board. Nothing bad will happen.
I is that your that's your promise.
This is
Um
my campaign. I'm running on this for head of EA Sports.
right. And
Head of EA Sports development of the gambling aspect of the college football video game 24.
okay, gotcha. Um
Vote me.
vote Arky. Vote today. I mean I see what you're saying. I think that again to me, I don't know that there is a way that the product seems worth it or participating in that aspect of the product seems worth it.
Well, okay, so okay, I'm sorry. Let me let you finish because I think I know where you're
No, no,
going,
no.
but I may be wrong. Go ahead.
I think you probably do know where I'm going. Like to me, it doesn't seem like there is a version of that that seems worth it to participate if I am not playing against another human being that can make mistakes that if they beat me it's because they anticipated my game plan better and not because literally I'm having to tell it my plays.
Well, that's what I'm talking about with the rooms. I'm saying like there would be people in the rooms.
Yeah.
Not AI in the rooms you're playing to. Not like you're playing Yahoo Pool or something, and you're trying
Mhm.
to go against the best pool that AI can figure out for Yahoo. You're talking about sort of just these rooms where people are, because you and I gamble at different rates as far as per
Right.
bet. Just generally, I'm a little bit higher, not much higher. I don't go nuts. I don't think I've ever bet more than $500 on a game. So
Arky's whole house is financed by other people's gambling losses and
it
broken
is,
legs.
but legally within the state of Tennessee, which is not the state I'm in out right now. So
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy the state of Alabama making me make that drive weekly to to just place a few little dollars
Sure.
to the state of Tennessee.
Do you
But
know that here in North Carolina, mobile betting missed going legal by a vote?
a a citizen vote?
No.
Okay,
By the state council, it missed by one vote.
that's a bummer.
And the deciding vote got his advice, decided how he was going to vote at church. And I don't know if it means a conversation with the pastor. I like to think he took a vote of the congregation.
or he's at the potluck that Sunday evening.
That's right.
He's like, all right, everybody listen. By the way, better lose, this brisket is delicious.
Oh, pulled pork. We don't do brisket here in North Carolina.
You don't do brisket in North Carolina?
I mean,
Is that what you're trying to say?
Pulled pork is our go-to.
I'm sorry, I did not mean to speak for the entire state
Thank
of North
you.
Carolina.
Just very.
And ruin my scenario. Now I won't
Thank
even finish it.
All right.
So Representative Bankert, which is his name, I may have also made that up.
I mean, could be right. Who knows?
Yeah, the state of Alabama, by the way, it's not legal, but we had to get the state Senate or state legislature to say yes, the state Senate to say yes, and then you have to send it to a vote for the citizens of Alabama who have turned it down before. But again, people keep forgetting. I want to do it,
Right.
so I don't know why people keep
Right.
forgetting.
Have you asked to address the state assembly?
Twice.
Okay.
Twice.
And they've said no.
They did. One of them. Now,
Shocking.
to be fair, one of them was Don Sigelman, and that's a very inside the state of Alabama joke. So you guys can look that up if you want to. He may be out of prison now. I'm not sure.
Might be.
Yeah. So okay. So back to the gambling aspect in the game. Yeah. I don't. What I don't think I'm asking for in general, and these are possibilities that you're talking about with like gambling with kids online who are
Yeah.
really good at it or bad at it or whatever, gambling your gaming points. I think that should be an option. I think it's very much worthy of being an option in the video game. If I'm going to institute it for the first time, I'd love it to be super simple, like I was speaking of. You know what I mean? Like I would love it to be inside Dynasty mode, whatever algorithm they want to figure out, and who cares about the spread on the games like underneath on the bottom scroll, right? You'll just go pay attention and be like, wow, Wake Forest did not lose by 18.5 like we thought.
Right.
Moving on, right? But like it's not going to be a huge deal to you.
I mean, look, to your point, like the that is something that's going to have to exist, because if EA Sports is all about if it's in the game, it's in the game. Like the TV presentation now, the lines are a part of the TV presentation.
And that comes to, I guess, what is going to be at the very minimum, my penultimate point. Could be my final one, depending on how the rest of this conversation goes, which is we know we're going to get TV presentation. We are very assumptive of who a couple of the people who are going to be involved in the TV presentation are going to be.
Right.
If the relationship, excuse me, is going to continue with a certain four-letter network, then I think it only makes sense to incorporate at least one, more likely two, of the more famous, more noteworthy college sports gamblers that are on that network. And I am speaking of the one you see on College Game Day every Saturday, Chris the Bear Felica. And also I'm referring to, for me, just because I get a nickname out of it, I would do Stanford Steve. Like, I don't think you have to make it. I don't. If you want to get all the big personalities in the world on the game, fine, and pay for them. But if you're going to focus the big personalities on the booth, then these other characters are really fun characters for this one aspect and are singularly known for that one thing.
Yeah. I don't hate it. This, by the way, this is something that we should probably do a whole episode on, of who are the people that need to have some sort of presence in the game when it comes back. So put a pin in that. But to your point, the TV presentation, I think that I want to say this without sounding too morose. But
Okay.
given where we are right now
Yeah.
with Lee Corso having missed so many weeks of College Game Day, doesn't it feel like the Bears picks? Doesn't it feel like they are every bit as important as that last round of picks of who is going to win the game? I mean, without headgear, what is notable? What is noteworthy about that segment? Like, I don't even think they've quite figured out how they want to do it yet.
The headgear is obviously the most notable part about that. The final picks really is this Jim saying, "All right, show's going off the air.
Yep.
Here's our very final thoughts. We have no more time to give you. We can't even give you any more thoughts on the 6:30 games. We're going off the air at 11:03."
Right.
So, um, I think you make up a very good point that not only is the Bear, Chris the Bear Fleeka slapping his logos on the spreads, sort of like becoming a thing over the last handful of years. That it really is when you think about it, as it's peppered in throughout the show. Like it's probably now. Usually he goes off the board for some of the games. He'll pick like an Army Yukon game,
Right.
and no one sort of has that on their top games. But aside from the being the most noteworthy games, because the Bear Felica won't pick all the noteworthy games because maybe he doesn't like the number, then yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think it's become just as important, especially if he was giving those thoughts on those games at the very end. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think there are all kinds of, as we've said, I think there are all kinds of realistic TV presentation reasons to at least acknowledge gambling. I would not be opposed to an XP wagering system in online head to head competition. And I love your idea about having it tie in somehow to a story involved in Dynasty mode. I think there is, I think it just feels a little bit, I don't know, a little bit clunky overall.
Well, okay. Let me,
Um,
let me ask you this: as someone who has gambled less than me and is sort of, getting used to seeing this on the TV, this will be my final point on this. Does it feel that way when you watch the broadcasts? Not necessarily. I'll take it from game day, and even to the games themselves. Does it feel like the gambling aspect feels clunky for you? Because for me, it feels shoehorned in a lot on the pregame shows,
mhm.
but not so much during the games. But I'll allow you, who is sort of fresher ear to hearing some of this, and it doesn't go straight through if in case I'm missing something.
Um, okay, so I don't know that I notice it at all during the games, aside from the
Yeah.
bottom line. To me, it doesn't feel clunky. And I think it's because of what I said earlier. Like, it has become such a big part of game day that I don't want to insult the show because I know that it has absolutely earned the reputation that it has of being one of the premier pregame shows of any sport in the country. But at this point, so much of any pregame show feels shoehorned that I don't think gambling makes a difference one way or the other. Aside from it is legal now, more people do it. Everywhere that it goes legal sees a profit from it and sees an uptick in participation. So it doesn't feel any less shoehorned than Desmond Howard thinking everything ever said is the funniest thing he's ever heard.
Which illegitimately is, that show is freaking hilarious. Everything that happens on there, there's nothing serious. It's all jokes. It's
That's right.
great. Like it's a 3 hour stand up routine, even though he's not on all 3 hours.
Right.
I will say this, and we can start to wrap it. I do feel like what you're saying is sort of valid, right? That as we're still looking at, as alluded to before, this is like a minority of people who even care, right? Who
Mm-hmm.
participate in this. But there is enough of a minority that participate and care about this, especially inside the sports segment, which is always what we're talking about here, that it can't be ignored anymore.
Sure.
Now,
I mean, listen,
how deep you go into it is a different level. So, as you're alluding to, I could see how maybe incorporate this, but maybe it's a slow ramp up to sort of being as much as what College Game Day does, which is like 2/3 of their content.
yeah.
And just sort of be like a thing that and you see and you sort of can pay attention to, but it's not the driving force of, let's say, a setup segment with, Reese Davis or Kirk Herbstreit or Chris Fowler or whomever is chosen to be able to be a part of those.
I think the thing to remember in answer to that point is everything we love, or every reason we love this video game, is in actuality the minority. Even the love of college football itself. I mean, the love of football itself, even the NFL, the biggest regular season games, the majority of the country is not watching, right? So the majority of the country is not watching the biggest college football game. The majority of college football fans are not buying the video game. The majority of the video game buyers are not completely locked into whichever mode it is you may prefer. But if enough of the plurality is, it is worth putting this into the game. You're talking about segments within segments, right? And I think that the overlap of the gambling community and the type of college football fan that has put their life on pause waiting for this game to come back in the last 10 years, I think there is way more overlap than the low end that EA may or may not fear there is.
I do feel that because I debated on getting married until the game come out.
Yeah.
The wife did not understand that, and I said, "Listen, you wouldn't."
Yeah.
So that's fine.
I've committed to only keeping my kids until the next game comes out. Then it's just too much of a commitment.
I think that's why you wanted to download the latest FIFA with your son, is to be able to get some of this quality remaining time in.
That's right. That's right. Less than a year at this point.
Yeah, I think again you're right. I think we're kind of close neck and neck on this. So I do think that there could be more to it. I would be satisfied with just that general beginning element inside Dynasty mode,
Mm-hmm.
right? That you sort of, it's something you could take. Listen, it's the same as me. It's like you go to check out your coach's record and you see your conference record all time.
Right.
Like, it's not the biggest thing, but it's not nothing. You know, you probably have to definitely put in more to be paying attention to every single game to have a spread on there, and whether or not you have, Lee Corso's head or Chris Felica's head, picking your game on the corner of the screen as far as the spread's concerned. That would be more. I don't hate that idea either.
Arky,
But again,
is,
I'm okay with the slow ramp up.
It is also a very interesting way to introduce the element of a program thinking bigger than it actually is. Like, if you come in as a coach that is, let's say you played 100 games to this point and you are 80-20 against the spread. You have some sort of absurd percentage against the spread. I think that does introduce an element of dealing with expectation that, like, whoa, California got really, really demanding of their football coach really quickly. Like, I think it does sort of give you a mechanism with which to raise expectations instantly on a higher.
Yeah, I think so. And finally, bruh, I think anything that allows more depth to the feature, I'm going to be playing 99.5% of my time in when the new game comes out. The more depth, the better for Dynasty mode. And so if you want to leave that feature for the people who play more hardcore, more often, longer, blah, 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 I can kind of see that. But shove it in Dynasty mode. Don't put it in exhibition mode, or don't create a cover the spread mode.
Right.
Just just put it in Dynasty mode, and make it a feature and not as the not the entire thing. Because my biggest fear with doing this is to turn people off. Not to gambling, because I don't make money from people just generally gambling. Like, you making a bet doesn't give me 1/10 of 1% of what you get. But my biggest thing would be, like, if you went too whole hog into it, and the first week afterward on social media, Twitter, if it still exists, on Facebook or whatever, wherever we'll find ourselves, or Truth or Social, is that what it is?
Truth.
Yeah, we'll go over to his platform and just have a bunch of people complaining about how there's way too much gambling, way too much talk about that, and way too much focus on it, when it should really be just about making Dynasty mode in depth and make it feel full, make the teams look good, get the uniform options, don't take those away just to put the gambling things in, and just create a really full Dynasty mode experience.
You have given me an idea
Ooh.
uh, for something that. Do you remember the old games gave you the chance to replay some of the like classic moments in college football
Yeah.
history?
Yeah.
Arky, I present to you backdoor cover mode.
Demetri Ravanos, Demetri. This is music to me ears.
See, I think that would be a fun way to introduce gambling into the game. And maybe you don't. Maybe you still call it like classic plays or whatever the case is. But you have whoever the play-by-play voice is acknowledge that our friends in the desert are not going to be happy about that one.
And this is where you can give Brent Musburger one final payoff.
Agreed.
And you could just get him to say like 4 lines like that, and then that's it. And then that's it. He gets a nice check from Electronic Arts, maybe some residuals to go to his estate, because we'll be playing this game for long. And we only need a handful of lines from him, something like that.
Right.
Because honestly, can you think of anybody else being the grandfather of talking about this and being the voice other than I know we were talking about Chris Fleeka, but he's
no. I mean, not for college football, right? Like you could name Al Michaels, but when was the last time Al Michaels' voice was heard on a college football game?
When was the Miracle on Ice? Was it like
that was 19? It's not a very famous Olympics. I want to say 1943. Did they do the Winter Olympics that year?
They do them in odd years. I do know that.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. All right, that's going to do it for us. Gambling mode. Let us know what you think in the old comments below. That's what Demetri said, and thrust upon that subscribe.
Like, genuinely, I'd be interested to know if there is a contingent that would want none of that shit on the game.
I don't think it's zero. I completely agree. I don't think it's zero. But yeah, if we get enough people, we'll feature some of the comments next week on the podcast and sort of see what y'all be thinking once y'all put them in the comments. So leave them below. It's always nice when you don't get people watching the entire 42.5 minutes to stay for 42 minutes to say, we're going to go comment. But you're doing it anyway, folks. And also, by the way, quick thank you to getting us for over 300 subscribers. We got now OU 2 bonus shows. So Demetri's going to do some work eventually, and we're going to have to get through the pain of that face soon.
Yeah. Well, Arky, in anticipation of that, I'm going to abuse pain medication right now.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
but before you do that, can you tell the good people goodbye?
Save and sip to next week, everybody.